the relationship of your feet to the ground. So are you taking the weight evenly from one foot to the other? And how would you describe to yourself the pressure that you take on your feet? So I know sometimes in my practice there'll be people walking and you can, there's a definite heel strike. You can hear them clunking along the floor. And other people walk quite softly. So as you walk, just have a sense of the pressure that's going through your feet and how that pressure's transmitting up through your body. And you could notice where you're looking. So do you feel that you're looking at the horizon? Do you look down towards the floor? You might have your head turned a little bit to the left or the right. And within that, are you standing at your full height? So is your spine lengthened? Or could you be organised in a different way? And then just stop somewhere so you've got a little bit of room. And have your feet a comfortable distance apart. So don't be too close to the chair because you're going to sort of be moving a little bit. And then start to just shift your weight left and right. So in the instruction it says sway side to side like a tree. So if you think of a tree swaying in the wind, my image of a tree is it's got a solid trunk, even if it's a sapling. I guess if it's a very young tree, there may be some sideways movement through the trunk. But otherwise a tree, it's quite a solid structure, bar the branches and the leaves that have more flexibility. So as you're swaying, is there a change in your ribs? Do you keep the ribs solid's not the word I'm looking for, but do they stay in the same configuration as you go from side to side and the movement's occurring more in your feet? Or do you also feel that as you're moving from side to side, your ribs might fold a little bit, either on the left side or the right side, or they might fold to whichever side that you're bending or the opposite side. And as you continue swaying, shifting your weight left and right, also notice what your head does. How does your head move through space? And in what we just did with Stephanie earlier, that idea, does the head stay in equal height? As you're moving left to right, does it get higher to one side or lower to one side? And then like a pendulum, make your movements smaller and smaller until you come to rest in the middle. And now we're going to explore forward and back. So I want you to start just moving your body a little bit forward and then coming back. And again, as you do that, feel how you're breathing. Can you continue to breathe easily as you go forward and backward? And take your attention to noticing what do you do in your trunk. So where is the movement occurring? Are you tending to arch your back or round your back as you do the movement? Or does the back stay in its relative position and you're just swaying forward and back, engaging the lower legs and the ankles in the movement? And is it easier to go in one direction than the other? And then pause. And so what we've been doing, if you think of cardinal directions, you've gone left to right, forward and back. And now what I'd like you to do, first of all, with your feet as they are, just start to make a circle. So you're thinking of circling. If you think of the top of your head, it's going to transcribe a circle on the ceiling. And notice which way you chose to make that circle. And are certain parts of the circle easier to travel toward? And as you're circling, again, sense not only your head making that circle, but how you're changing the pressure across your feet. And also, what happens between the feet and the head? Is there a lot of movement in your ribs, or the ribs are staying relatively in the same position and more movement occurring in the feet and the ankles? And then change the direction of your circle. And by changing direction, has that altered the ease of the movement, the availability of getting to certain parts of your circle? And then leave it and go for a walk, and use your walking to observe what effect those movements have had, and also just to take a little bit of a rest. And notice the pressure on the ground with your feet as you're walking. Again, where you're looking. And then come to pause, and just go and do some more movements in standing, and have your feet, again, a comfortable difference apart. But now what I want you to do is to intentionally take more weight on your right foot. So the left foot's going to be more of the support foot, and you're going to have more weight on the right. And now in that position, start shifting your weight, again, left and right. But as you shift your weight left and right, your weight is still being retained on the right foot. So you're shifting left and right over the right foot. And feel how the weight shifts, along the foot, how the weight, as you go in one direction, will go more toward the inside edge of the foot. As you go to the other direction, it'll go to the outside edge of your foot. And then you can pause. And just feel the weight on your feet, and if that movement's already started to create a change. Because as people were saying earlier, it doesn't take a lot for us to perceive a difference and to reorganise ourselves. So again, put more weight on your right foot, but now move your weight forward and back. And feel how there's more weight coming on toward the front of the foot as you sway your body forward. And then as you move backward, how more weight goes toward the heel of the right foot. And feel as you go forward and back, does that create a change in your lower back, or in your upper back, in your neck? and how much is movement is occurring in the lower leg and the ankle. And then just, if you'd like, you can take a brief pause before we start to make circles around the foot. So again, find a way to take your weight easily back onto the right leg. And now transcribe that circle with your head in space. And feel as you do that how you could start making a circle which will have the effect of a pressure change around the right foot. So you may experience that at certain points of the circle the weight goes onto the front of the foot. At other points in the circle the weight will shift to the outside edge of the foot or the inside edge. And then when you're ready, just continue moving. See if you can easily reverse the direction of the circle. And then take another walk and notice of having done that with the right foot, how has that again affected your relationship of your feet to the ground? And has that effect gone further throughout your body? So do you feel a difference in how the leg moves? It might be how the right side of your body is moving, how the arm's moving. And you could notice where you're looking again, if you're more aware of one side of the room than the other side. And then pause once more in standing and have your feet a comfortable distance apart. And now you're going to repeat that process but with more weight on your left leg. So to start with, just shift your weight on your left foot and start to sway in both directions a little bit more to the left and to the right. And feel on this leg how it is. Is there a difference somehow? Are you organise yourself in this movement taking more weight on the left leg than you did on the right leg? And if you go back to that image of a tree, is your trunk staying relatively still whilst the movement occurs in the lower leg and in the foot and the subtalar joint? Or do you tend to bend, like the sides of your body, do they tend to bend to one side or the other side? And does the head translate horizontally through space, or the pathway of the head is a little bit of a curve or an arc? And then let that go and just pause on both of your feet. And now you can return to taking the weight on your left foot and just move forward and backward. So toward the heel as you tilt backwards and towards the front of the foot as you sway forward. And how are you breathing? Can you breathe easily and freely as you do the movement? And then pause again and notice the weight now on both of your feet. And then return to putting your weight on the left foot and having that image of how could you create a circle with the top of your head. So it's like your head is transcribing a circle on the ceiling, and by doing that, your body is responding and you're circling in whichever direction you've chosen. And as you make that circle, feel the pressure shifting across the left foot. And not only across the left foot, but how you organise your ribs, your head and neck. And then change the direction of the circle. And notice if the change of direction means that certain points of that circle are easier to create. If you organise your torso and the head in the same way. And then leave it and take another walk. And again, as you're walking, feel how both your feet are in contact with the ground. So you could notice if the weight between the legs is more even or less even. And you could feel if your foot is contouring to the ground in a different way. And again, observe how you're organising the rest of your body, where you're looking, and the quality of the movement. And then continue to walk, but find either a chair to sit on or a table to sit on, and come down to sitting. And feel how you're taking the weight on through across your bottom as you're sitting. And like we did yesterday, the exploration of the ischium, if your weight's distributed evenly from side to side, or if you have more weight on one side than the other. And you can feel how your feet are in contact with the floor and where you've chosen to place your feet. So the feet and the ischium, the bottom, have the relationship with the chair or the ground. And then notice the rest of you. Notice, the shape of your spine, going from where both in your lower back, if you feel you're arching the lower back or allowing it to round, or if it's in a more neutral position, and then up through your spine to your head. And now in that position, similarly as you did in standing, start swaying left and right. So just swaying a bit to the left and then to the right. And your questions earlier on were very apt, because you saw Stephanie gave that lovely demonstration with the possibilities of this movement through the spine. So swaying can be interpreted in different ways. So as you do the movement, is it that you're keeping the spine in the same configuration and your body is tilting left and right? Or is there a folding in the side of your ribs? And breathe easily as you do that movement. And then pause in sitting. And if you can now begin to move your body backward and forward. But now again, think of what you did in standing, how it was more of a tilting movement backward and forward, or a swaying movement, versus what we did a lot yesterday, which was rounding the back by the pelvis and then rolling the pelvis and arching the back. So in this movement we're thinking more of the hip joints and of keeping the spine in the same position, so not increasing the curves of the spine and just tilting the body forward and back. And feel what happens as you do that. So notice what happens to the head, if there's a pressure shift across your feet and bottom, and how easily you can breathe as you do that. And then pause. And if you're wanting to pause on your backs, then lie down on the floor and do that. And if you're happy, resting and sitting, if you're on a chair, you can lean back on the chair or make yourself comfortable. So some of you might have started to recognise the lesson that I'm teaching, which is from the Awareness Through Movement book. And it's that first lesson where Moshe talks about what is good posture. So as you're pausing, just sense the organisation of your body, how comfortable you are. If you're lying down, you could get a sense of what parts are in contact with the floor. And if you're sitting or lying, you can notice how you're organising your pelvis, your spine, and the head, and the connection of those parts. And you could and you could have a sense. Yesterday we did also that lovely exploration of the pelvis and looking at the hip joints. So you could notice where you experience your hips. And then if you're lying down, find a way to come up easily up to sitting and standing, and come back to sitting on a chair or on the table. And notice as you're sitting, if you've chosen to sit far back in the chair or on the table, or if you're more toward the front of the chair or table. And now please start to do similar to what you did in standing, of thinking of making a circle with the top of your head on the ceiling. And as you do that, it's going to create a circle, a circular movement in your body. So think, previously you've just explored going forward and back, and how you could do that in a way that didn't alter the curves of your spine greatly, and going side to side. So in this circular movement, the idea is that the movement of circling the head, and it's like the head is going to stay looking horizontal as the head is circling. And continue the movement, and think of the movement, of what's happening in your hips. So thinking of, how you're circling the movement, and it's coming predominantly from the hips versus the lower back. And then change the direction of the circle. And feel the shift of pressure across your bottom as you do the circle. And so it's like your spine is being fastened to the table, and your head is balanced on top, and the head is drawing the circle in space. And then leave it and take a pause. Again, pause how you like. We're going to continue the lesson in sitting. But during the breaks, you can choose if you want to quickly have a lie down on the floor, or if you want to just rest in sitting. So for those of you who've chosen to lie down, it's only a short break. So think of now coming back up, rolling up to sitting and standing and coming back onto your chairs. Unless, of course, you just want to take more time and rest in lying, which is also fine. Now, would you sense how you're sitting, and if you are towards the back of the chair, or if you've got a lot of your thigh on the table, please move forward so that you're more on the front edge of either the chair or the table. And in this position, see if you can move your knees both, left and right. So if you've got freedom in the legs to move in a sideways direction, and also if you've got the freedom to move the knees a little bit forward and back. So you want to find a position where you've got that freedom of movement in the legs. And then when you've found that place, you're going to imagine that your feet are on some bathroom scales. So we didn't have enough bathroom scales for everybody, so you're going to make your own. So just think that your feet are on some scales. And with that in your mind, come up to standing. And feel as you come up to standing how the weight would shift or transmit to the scales underneath your feet. So Moshe talks about how coming from sitting to standing for a lot of people is effortful, and how that by having their legs on their scales, you can see how the weight is transmitted. And then do that a few times and think, if as you do the movement, if there were scales there, where would the needle of the scale go? Or if you've got digital scales, how would the numbers rise? And Moshe describes how that for people, by having the legs on the scale, it's about 25% of their body weight. But if you're coming to standing and using effort, how that weight can actually be recorded to go past your normal body weight. So you accelerate by pushing through your feet, a lot of people, and if it was the old-fashioned scales with a needle, it would go past your normal body weight, and then it would oscillate up and down until it got to your body weight. So just imagine those scales were there and what they would indicate in how you're taking the pressure through your feet, and then leave it next time you're sitting and take a pause. And now return to doing the movement that you did earlier in sitting, of tilting your body forward and back. And go forward and come back. And so remember, it's a tilting. The other image with this I've got in mind is, I go to cartoons and cocktail glasses. You know how they have those cartoons where they have a bird that's sitting on the cocktail glass and the bird is just going up and down. Don't know if you've seen the same cartoon. But anyway, so the idea is that the bird remains, it doesn't bend in its body, it just sort of goes like a pendulum, up and down. And continue tilting forward. And as you do, you're going to think that the weight, that you could lift your feet and knees, but you're only going to think that you could lift your feet and knees from the floor as you tilt forward. And then you can gradually, in your own time, expand upon that tilting like a bird and come up to standing. And again, you're thinking of the feet and the knees that they could come away from the floor. Bless you. And so by thinking of the feet and the knees moving upward as you tilt forward, does that lighten the pressure through the feet so that the scales, imaginary scales underneath your feet, would react in a different way of recording the pressure and the weight shift through your system? And can you breathe as you do that? So there's less, observe for yourself if there's less pressure going through your feet as you bring that movement into standing. And then leave it and pause. And again, if you're feeling as if you'd like to briefly lie on your backs, feel free to do that. Otherwise, find a way to rest in sitting. And there's quite a lot of discussion earlier on sitting for meditation and how you can rest or sit for a long time. And Feldenkrais had this idea that if we align our skeleton, so the skeleton does the work, when we're sitting or standing or transitioning between the two, then there's no extra work in the muscles. So find a way, if you're on your backs, to come back to be sitting in your chair or on the table. And if you're on the chairs or the table, return to sitting toward the front of the chair or table. Now please bring your right hand somewhere to the top of your head and hold on to the hair at the top of your head, or the cap, whichever the case may be. And think of how that hand can help feel what's happening in the neck. So what I'd like you to explore is coming up to standing, but you're going to use that hand to keep the cervical spine in the same configuration as you come to standing. So the idea of the hand on the head is that you can feel if there's a change in the neck. And you can just gently pull up through the hair, or if you've got a cap on the cap, and have that sense of lengthening as you come up to standing. And you can keep that slight pull on your hair also as you reverse the movement and come to sitting. And how does that affect the ease of transitioning from sitting to standing? And next time you're sitting, take the hand away. And now please bring the other hand to be holding onto your hair or the cap at the top. And if you're holding on your cap, what you want it to be sort of central, so sort of looking at the crown of your head. So imagine if you haven't got a cap on, that you'd be holding onto the hair at the crown of your head. And repeat the same movement of tilting forward and just gently, like a string, you're pulling on the hair that's lengthening you. And you can move easily from sitting, transitioning up onto your feet. And how does that affect the relationship of your feet to the ground? So are the scales, imaginary scales now, what would be happening to them? Are you accelerating the pressure through the feet, or does it remain relatively constant? And with your hand, having done both hands now, did you feel a difference from one hand to the other? And then leave it and rest. And maybe everyone have a lie down on the floor and take a rest in lying. And take the opportunity to feel for yourself how your body's contouring with the ground. You can feel how you're breathing. You could tune in and listen to the curves of your spine. If you think of the lines of your body, so feel your two legs and have a image, I'm thinking like of a stick figure or of our friend the skeleton, of how the legs are going to connect into the hip joint. That's two of your lines. And then sense the line of your spine going from your pelvis up to the base of the skull, of your skull. And then feel your arms and feel how the arms also, they're the other two lines, how your arms connect into your shoulders. And then you could draw in your image, the shape of your head, the ball of your head, and also the pelvis as a circular type of shape. And please come back to be sitting on your chair or on the table. So make the transition easy, and as you come up, and return to being toward the front of the table or toward the front of the chair. And please return to coming up to standing, and feel as you do the movement, is there a place where there is some effort, or where you experience a change in the pressure through your feet? Just somewhere in the movement where what you're aiming for is to do the movement effortlessly, and you could imagine doing it reversibly. So as you are coming up from sitting to standing, if you feel a point where there's a change in your breath, a change in the pressure of your feet, or something else where you might just not be moving as freely, could you stop there and scan your body and try and relax whatever it is that you might be unconsciously holding? And as you relax it, then you have the choice to either continue the movement up to standing or to reverse the movement and sit back down. So you're feeling where the movement, for whatever reason, loses that quality of smoothness, of ease, of effortlessness. And you'll pause there, and as you pause, you're seeing, and maybe you're holding your breath, maybe your jaw's tightening, or you've done something in the neck. And you're creating a change that then allows you to continue in one direction or the other direction. And next time you're in sitting, stay sitting. And please start to move your knees inward and outward, so that you're sort of bringing your knees more toward each other and then away from each other. And as you do that, you're going to find a rhythm of the movement. And it's, you can choose the rhythm, but this is going to form like the background within the next movement. So your knees are finding a synchronous movement of moving inward and outward. And play with the rhythm. You can make it a little bit quicker, so it's light. You can also play with how wide you're opening your knees and closing them. But you want to explore and discover a rhythm of moving your legs in this fashion that you could maintain throughout the transitioning from sitting to standing. So the idea is that the knees are moving rhythmically, and when you've found a rhythm, you're then going to explore how can you come up to standing and return to sitting and keep the legs moving in the exact same rhythm. And as always, go slowly. Just go a little bit and come back, and feel how you can keep the rhythm. So the rhythm is important. It's like the rhythm is more important than coming up to standing or sitting. So you don't want to fool yourself and think you can do it. And then find that when you're standing that your knees are wide apart or close together, because then in a sense you might have coordinated the movement of standing and sitting with the end point of your knees being opened or closed. And you want the knees just to keep moving. I had a bit of an image like, I was going to say a butterfly, but I don't know if that's quite right. But you know, something fluttering, something just moving easily, the knees together and apart. And explore as you do that the rhythm of the legs. And you may find, not only if you change the rhythm, that it's easier to attend to the rhythm as you come up to standing. And you could play with, you know, how wide the knees come apart and together. And can you breathe? Are you breathing as you do the movement? And next time you're sitting, return to sitting. And place whichever hand, that'd be good. Like an alien, you've got a few heads. Bring one hand back to holding the hair or your cap at the crown of your head. And holding on to your hair or your cap, you're going to continue with bringing the knees in that rhythmical pattern together and apart. And again, explore how you can come up to standing. And is it by holding on to that part of your head and thinking of lengthening of your spine, how does that affect the ease of coming up to standing and of returning to sitting? And then leave it and rest in sitting. Just feel how you're sitting now, how you're taking the pressure through your bottom and your feet. And now I'd like to imagine that there's a chair in front of you and that you could place your hands on the back of the chair. And you can bring your hands out in front of you at the height of an imaginary chair. And then in that configuration, you're going to explore how you can raise your bottom from the chair or the table and then return it to the chair or the table. So your legs now are just, you're no longer needing to have to do that rhythmical motion of your legs, they're still, but you're thinking of how you can bring your bottom into the air and then return your bottom to the chair or table. And you may find as you do that movement that you come up to standing and that you return to sitting, but your intention has changed. So Motte talks about shifting your attention from the intention or I'm going to say the aim, the achievement of coming up to standing or of going back down to sitting, to the action of just bringing your bottom away from the surface that you're sitting on and then returning it to the surface. And how that shift of attention, how does that affect the movement? and what happens throughout you as you do that. And then have a rest. There are still a few more variations to do, so find a way to rest comfortably. And now bring one hand to the top of your head. So you're not going to hold on to your hair this time, but you're just bringing your fingertips to the crown of your head. So you want to, the idea of the fingertips on the head, I think I'd just let the hand rest so that more of your fingers are on the scalp than having the points of the fingers on. Because you want to use your hand so that you can feel the changes that occur in your neck as you do the movement. So start by having your hand or your fingers in that position and just gently nodding your head so that your chin moves closer to your throat and then comes away from your throat. And feel how you can sense that movement of the head through your hand and through your fingers. So you're lowering your chin and raising your chin. And then feel how you could expand moving the chin away from your throat through your hips. So not through the pelvis of arching the lower back, but through the hips. How can you tilt forward? And as you tilt forward, the chin moves a little bit away from your throat. And can you feel, as you do that, what happens in your neck? And continue exploring that movement until you can return to being on your feet. And can you do this without increasing the effort or the pressure that you put through your legs? And feel how you're breathing, if you can breathe easily and naturally through the movement. And notice how the movement goes. So if you're thinking of the movement, you're moving your hips. How does that movement from your hips transmit through your spine to your head? Can you think of like it being a clear transmission? And do you, like my imaginary bird on a cocktail glass, keeping sort of lengthening your spine, or are you tending to change the curve of your spine? And then pause in sitting and feel the effect of all of these movements on how you're sitting. And return to having that image of the scales under your feet. And once or twice, with that image in mind, come up to standing and notice how the scales now respond to your feet. So, you know, does that needle stay at a more constant place than before? Is there less pressure? You're using your, you know, not pushing into the ground, but are the feet able to retain an equal pressure with the imaginary scales as you move or transition from one position to the other? And next time you're in standing, stay in standing. And feel how you're standing. How do you take the weight on your feet? What's their relationship with the floor? And how do you feel the length of your spine? And you know, that idea that the head is on top of the spine, how is that relating to the spine and your surroundings as you stand? And then have a walk around the room and feel how it is in walking. Break. 20? Okay. And now you can take your walking into a break, and we're going to have a break of 20 minutes.